Ben and his brother-in-law are fourth-generation owners at Levine Brothers Plumbing in Canada, but that didn't come easy.
I mean, this transition in terms of earning the respect took years until there was conversations we had to have that one employee called the smackdown, because it came to whatever loyalty you had to them, you need to transfer that to us or you can't stay.
20 years after taking over, here's how they've maintained success in the family business. Ben, thanks for joining us. 4 generations, and I think you're my first Canadian podcast, so I'm going to have to, number one, 4 generations of plumbing is a long time. Is that something when you're a kid, it's something that you're thinking like the last thing I want to do is be a plumber? I mean, when you think back to, it's got to be different once you become an adult, but what's it like growing up in the plumbing business?
Oh, that was cool. Growing up, I came in, I used to go away to sleepaway camp in the summers, but spring breaks, winter breaks, times when I wasn't in school, I'd be coming into the office. I worked in the warehouse. I have a plumber that just retired last year that I was 6 years old. He was teaching me my tools. I was going on service calls with him, although I don't think we could do that anymore, all the regulations and all that. But I grew up in the building. We had a plumber here who was with us for 53 years. I called him grand-père, which is grandfather in French. And I grew up in it.
So you legitimately liked it, even at a young age. It wasn't something where, because you were immersed in it, it was kind of something you shied away from, which sometimes does happen.
Right up until, so here we graduated high school in grade 11, and I wanted to become a physio. I love playing sports. I get hurt a lot, and I love helping people. So that last one is really what helped me transition into the business. But I went into health sciences at CEGEP, which is our junior college right out of high school. And it really, my dad's mindset was, you don't have to come into the business. You don't have to come into the company. It's fully, I want you here if you want to be here. If this is your passion, then I want you here, but I want you to get a university education. I want you to explore who you want to be, who you should be. I
think that's smart and healthy of your dad to recognize that, because if you don't want to be there, you're not going to run the company properly anyway.
Amen.
And kind of part B, are you an only child, or did you have other siblings who also?
So I have 2 older sisters. My dad still introduces me as his baby. I'm 43 years old. And so my oldest sister went into architecture, moved out of Montreal as soon as she was able to. My younger sister, it wasn't her path, but actually her husband, who graduated in electrical engineering a year before I graduated university, came into the business before me. So my brother-in-law is now my partner. So we're 4th generation of brothers. So that's kind of cool.
Let's rewind a little bit. Your dad says to you, unless you're fully invested in this, I want you to go and get a university education and figure out what you truly want to do with your life. Because if it's not this, I don't want you here.
Yeah.
So you go to the university. You're not quite sure you want to get into plumbing at that point. What shifts your mindset to realize maybe I do want to follow into the family business? What happened? What was the switch there?
One business class. So I had one professor, one teacher who went into teaching as a way of retiring, and he really lit something in me from an entrepreneurship point of view, from a business point of view, and it stopped being learning for the sake of marks, and it was learning for education now. It was learning to educate myself and better myself. I hadn't felt that in a long time. So really it was one teacher, one business class, and all of a sudden everything flipped. everything. I want to go into the business. After that, my focus in class was every group project. I was looking at small businesses, family businesses, succession. Any presentation I gave had Levine Brothers in the back of my head as a way to see how I could bring that knowledge in with me.
So you finished your university degree.
Yeah.
Even though you kind of knew you wanted. So right out of college or university, did you come right to the business then, or did you get a job?
No, I had knee surgery, and I took the summer off at summer camp, my last summer camp. Originally, I wanted to drive across Canada, then come back down and across the US. We're in Montreal, Quebec, so pretty east. I wanted to go out west and come back. Because I had knee surgery, I needed physio twice a week. Finished camp on Thursday. Friday lunchtime, I was at the office. My dad and I went out for a negotiation lunch. I felt really important. It was great. I remember the offer salary he wrote down on the paper placemat. And Monday morning, 7:00, I was in the office in the dispatch service department because the guy was on vacation for 2 weeks.
What year is this?
2004.
So 2004, you come in immediately. And at that point, your dad is still involved. Your dad is still running the business. Is that right?
My dad and my uncle.
So your dad and your uncle are running the business in 2004.
Yeah.
How long before they transition out and you become more into the leadership type role?
So we bought into the business. My brother-in-law, myself, and one other partner, we bought into the business after 4 years. The other partner, non-familial member, he was a plumbing expert. We did reports for insurance companies, municipalities, law firms, and he was running that department. He was a plumbing expert. And at the time, there were companies that were looking to poach him. And my dad and uncle really wanted to solidify our future. My brother-in-law, electrical engineer by schooling. I think I was still an apprentice. We have a 4-year apprenticeship here in Quebec. I was still an apprentice, and they wanted to lock down the plumbing expertise for the future. So they brought the three of us in at the same time. That's in 2008. Okay. Did we actually start taking more responsibility and more leadership? Maybe a little bit after that.
Is there adversity, or I don't know if adversity is the right word, but is there friction? A lot of times it's really hard to work with family, and you guys have uncles, brothers, brother-in-laws, non-family. What does that dynamic look like? I can't imagine it's all harmonious.
Well, there are definitely some stories that I won't share here, but on the most part, there's certain expectations of family that you don't have of other employees. There's a certain level of commitment that's expected that's almost not spoken about. And I think that's where a lot of family businesses run into problems, is the unspoken about expectations. Something that we've learned, or I've learned, maybe, what do they say? Experience is what you get right after you need it. But it's having those hard conversations earlier on, having expectation conversations, separating roles and responsibility. I mean, I like to say that my dad and uncle, they ran the biggest small company I knew. Like, my dad was in at 4:30 in the morning in the office. We used to cross paths. I was coming home, he was leaving. And that was my university experience. And it coming in, there was definitely certain expectations. My Brother-in-law less so than me, because I grew up in the business. My uncle saw me as part of his kin, and there was a little bit extra pressure. The good part about it is that there are conversations that are being had earlier on, because there's a natural training going on. Conversations that coming in as someone in the service department, I wouldn't have been involved in those conversations. So I was able to learn more aspects of the business earlier on as being part of the family. I was able to make better global decisions because I had more information at my disposal.
Sure.
So that's definitely the advantage to it. Then the disadvantage is really there's expectations on work ethic, expectations on mindset, and even later on, something that was talked about was really like the the convenience store owner, who needs to be the one who puts the key in the door at the beginning of the day and be the one who locks up at the end of the day to make sure everything's okay. And it's change of mindset, change of philosophy, change of organizational structure was a challenge that I couldn't really put into place until my uncle retired, and then later on when my dad retired is really when the bigger shift started to come into place. Where
I want to follow up on that in kind of a different way. A little bit more about family. You keep talking about expectations, which I totally understand. And I think the other part that plays in when you're working with family is emotions are different. So when you've got different expectations and different emotions, that's what sometimes I think causes the problems, is because you're treating the family different. You even said that. Yeah. You know, you might be quicker to lose your temper or quicker to be more sympathetic, all of those things. And you sometimes have to remove yourself from that. But to get beyond that, another question I had, and you talked about the transition when your uncle and your dad left, was there a portion where the people who were already in place there felt like some of this might be nepotism and you had to earn their respect, or did that not ever really happen because you kind of came from the ground up?
Even though I came from the ground up, employees here at the time, ones who were loyal to my dad and uncle, I was getting tested. My brother-in-law was getting tested all the time.
Yeah, you're the kids. What do they know?
They used to call us. Actually, that's exactly what they used to call us, the kids. And at one point, I asked my uncle to stop calling us the kids because it really brought us down, and we agreed on the boys. The boys had a little bit like it sounds stupid, but it was like real mindset.
No, and I don't think it was ever meant to probably be derogatory in any way, but to your point, it sounded that way to an external ear.
Yeah. So people would offload certain responsibilities that they had, and then when I was taking on things myself and I couldn't take on their roles, I couldn't take on their responsibilities, and I would go and bring it back to my dad, all of a sudden I'm the silver spoon that didn't want to work hard. On the other hand, when I was working on the road, I made sure, so it was interesting transition, and just in terms of timing, is I actually was overseeing the service department before I was an apprentice on a truck. Just the way things worked out in the office, I was a filler. We call it in French a bouche-trou, someone who fills the holes. And so when someone in the warehouse had a heart attack, I jumped into the warehouse, even though I was on a job site. So that's, I guess, the advantage that I had being in the family. But then I made sure that I was working on all the hard jobs, all the heavy work, all the overnight work, and that each one of the plumbers, I made sure I worked with each one. So I was there to serve them as their apprentice, so they really understood, and I understood them, where I was coming from. It was tough, though. it was really tough getting past that Elliot's son, Neil's nephew, nepotism. It almost, we needed close to a transition in terms of the guys on the road. Like some of the older guys just couldn't transition into seeing us as their supervisors. And some of them retired. Some of them we had to retire. And some of them were like, these are the kids with the same values and same feel as the generation before. Why wouldn't I be happy to work?
Yeah, right.
Like it was, so there was difficult. And I mean, this transition in terms of earning the respect took years until like there was conversations we had to have that one employee called the smackdown, because it came to whatever loyalty you had to them, you need to transfer that to us or you can't stay. Like we're running the company now. If you're not going to be on board with what and how we are doing it, then we can't keep you. You can't stay. It's not good for anybody. So
well, now I would assume you fast forward to present and that's all water under the bridge, but it was certainly a challenging time, you know, probably very mentally challenging, you know, back then to think back on it and think, wow, are we going to be able to do this? But you obviously made it through and now you're running it. What are the major differences between your management style and your dad and uncle's management style?
So I work more with allowing people to make decisions, responsibility. We put our values up on the wall. I asked my dad why he never talked about them. He's like, everybody knows. Everybody knows what our values are. So we put our values up on the wall. And one of the things I said is, whether you make a right decision or a wrong decision, as long as it's in line with the values and our mission statement, let's learn from it. And it's okay. Don't be scared to make decisions on your own. Where a lot of people, back when my dad was managing it, they would hold on to decisions to make. They would hold on to things, and it would be a 5-minute check on here, a 20-minute check on there. My dad used to go through the service calls every day to see who was scheduled the next day and where, and make sure it was all in line. Where our service department, we brought in an office manager since then, and as long as they're in line with what we're looking for, we adjust after. But
well, that's a very typical owner operator thing to do. You know, you go back to, this is 4th generation. So your dad took this over from his dad or his uncle or somebody, I assume.
His dad,
you know, and that's a very typical, I'm sorry.
His dad and uncle.
His dad and uncle, same deal. Yeah. So, you know, that's a very typical owner operator micromanagement type thing, to just feel like you have to be connected to all the pieces. And I think it takes time and good people to realize, like, if you plug a good person into that position, I don't have to pay attention to that, which means I can pay attention to things that are more important. And it sounds like maybe that's where you guys could jump over a new hurdle and grow the business a little bit. So let's talk about growth a little bit. As far as like number of employees, how many employees did you guys have when you started versus now? Is it similar or is it pretty different?
When I started, it's similar and a little bit of natural growth. We've brought in a few more trucks. We've been up and down over the years. There's a few things that we've tried. We're going through some pretty exciting times right now, but we're not as big as we once were. At one point, we were up to 21 trucks on the road, 50 employees. Now we're at 18 trucks on the road. So we're pretty similar to where we were, but we're building it in a different way. At one point when I took over, I mean, I took over. My dad called a meeting. It was my two partners at the time and my dad. And he's like, okay, Ben's going to be president now. Okay. That was it. That was the conversation, not roles and responsibilities are changing, not here's what you need to look after. Here, you look after the finance, you look after the client. Like, none of it. It's Ben's going to be president. Okay, great. What does that mean? Nothing. Titles mean nothing. So then I was working my ass off to run my dad's company. We had one client that was hovering between 40 and 50% of our total sales.
Oof.
Yeah. And it happened naturally. It's a client that we're still working with for about 25 years now. They're multi-unit residential commercial mix. And at the time it was, hey, I have this project. I have these boilers to replace in this building. Could you take it? Of course I can. All right. We're renovating all of the washrooms in this building. Could you take it? Of course I can. All of a sudden we have 50% of our revenue coming from one client just because I kept saying yes. And there was no focus on business development, no focus on networking, no outward marketing. The mentality was that you do a good job for your clients and they'll tell people about you. You involve yourself in community activities and people will naturally talk to you and want to do business with you. That was business development from the old generation, the old mindset. And that's what I was working on, serving the work that was coming in. It was very passive in that way. There was very little proactivity on it. Even to the point when I started a Facebook page in like 2017 or 2016, maybe even before, my dad was like, why are you always playing on the computer? and that was the mindset. I wasn't working, I was playing. So 2018 came. There was actually a rude awakening from a don't have your eggs all in one basket type situation, is that there was a misunderstanding from the owner of this client who was on vacation. He got a jarbled up voicemail saying that it was us who called inspectors into a job site, and he got really upset and he sent an email out right away saying until further notice to stop doing business with us. And the next day I had 6 trucks parked at home. And it took about a week to clear up. Apparently an anonymous complaint really is, because I was calling. They came in with, for us, it's Revenue Quebec is our provincial IRS, came in with our workers' comp inspectors, everybody. And it turns out a week later, turns out that it was one of the tenants got into a fight with a contractor, and he was a worker. He didn't want to deal with it. So he pretended that he didn't speak English or French. So she just assumed that he wasn't legally working here and called all the inspectors to come in at the same time. But that week, the amount of impact it had, not just on me, but the business, really shaped where my mindset was going and what the company needed from me at a different level. Didn't need me to help everybody look after the clients that were here and what's coming in only. It meant we needed to be purposeful about business development. It means I needed to start networking and going out into different aspects to build up our target clients, because 55% of sales cannot be dictated based on one message to one man.
One happy or unhappy customer.
Exactly.
Percentage wise now, how is the business spread out?
I looked yesterday and he's at 9% of our sales.
Which is healthy.
Which so much healthier. And
how much I would think that even though you have the same number of trucks, and like you say, you've been up and down a couple trucks over the years,
Yeah.
haven't efficiencies in the plumbing sector probably made your revenue and your profitability increase? Just going back even 20 years, you didn't have things like Service Titan, or flat rate pricing wasn't as prevalent. You know, it was around 20 years ago, but almost everyone now institutes things like that. Are there efficiencies that have helped the business grow, even though you haven't grown on paper per se with people?
Great question. So in Quebec, it seems to be very different. Nobody's doing flat rate pricing.
Including you?
Including us. We don't do it. We do, it's either time material, or if we go into a bigger project, we give a price, an estimate, and that's how we work. We have a different market in Quebec, is that I don't want to say black market, but there are definitely people who shouldn't be doing plumbing or doing a lot of plumbing. So it really drags down a little bit of our efficiency. We have a lot of fixtures. When I first started, my dad refused to install any fixtures that someone bought themselves. Because big box stores came in. We have Rona and Reno Depot here and Home Depot, and now we couldn't do business if we didn't install other people's fixtures. So there's a much different mindset here, and now everybody's able to Google prices of everything. So it's now our biggest challenge, so to speak, is the value sell, where people are telling me, I have a handyman who could do plumbing for me. Why do I need to call a plumber in? Or I have some actual long-term clients who've recently told me they call a handyman in to do the small stuff, like change a faucet, unblock a toilet, fix things here and there, and they call us in for major work. But really, it's the small stuff, it's the small repairs that keep business rolling. And so it's our value sell now is what we're working on, and understanding a little bit more of an understanding that not everybody should be a client of ours. So let's find the ones who truly value what we provide.
I'm a little surprised to hear all this, only in the sense of supply and demand. Here in the States, I couldn't name one area where there's not a shortage of plumbers. Even if it's, like you say, black market or unlicensed, whatever you want to call it, even then, there's a shortage of people to do that work. And it sounds like maybe that's the difference. Could be
that handymen are more than willing. People who do painting and plastering are more than willing to install faucets because it's easy plumbing work. They're more than willing. I mean, it seems that with all of the material that we have available at Home Depot, big box stores, so not to name one of them, but at the big box stores, anyone knows how to glue two pieces of pipe together.
Right.
They don't really care so much about back water valve protection or proper mechanical venting, but why does the homeowner care? At least not yet.
That's definitely has to be challenging for you. I guess I would wonder to myself, is there a way you can position yourself, or is that what you're trying to do, as just like, listen, we're the premium choice. If you want it done and done right, this is the way we're going to do it. And that's the position you have to take.
It is. And when we come into someone's home, we're not there to fix a problem. We're there to help them take care of their home completely. So we're there for a toilet that needs to be fixed. Well, 9 times out of 10, we're not just going to be fixing the toilet while we're in the house. We need to provide the extra value. Once we leave there, we need people to feel that their homes are taken care of and they're comfortable with everything. And that's,
what do you do? What do you do to make sure that happens? Are you using any type of software? Is it just part of your training? How is that? How are you making that work?
So right now we have monthly seminars with our plumbers on a regular basis. Myself, my brother-in-law, our project managers, every morning sit down, go over the work that they did, and then go over what else, how they could be talking to the clients. If there's a situation that happened, it turns into a training. It turns into a role play. How else could we have done this differently? So it's a constant evolution, a constant betterment of our servicemen on the road. It's not just having someone who wrote an exam who has been an apprentice for us for 4 years, or somebody else, just because they wrote an exam, they're going to be a valuable serviceman for us. No, it really is about mindset. It's about learning. I tell our guys here is the last day that they are going to be learning is the last day they should be working for us. There's always another aspect to learn. There's always ways to bring the conversation to one where you're helping the client look after their home. I write on the board for every seminar, sales is education. Because I at one point I was talking with someone who does sales training, so I started talking about salesmanship to our plumbers, and I had one plumber come up to me and he said, "We're servicemen. We're there to serve the clients. We're not salesmen." He said, "If you want someone to sell something, it's not going to be me," and walked out. And I'm like, okay, but that's our goal, is to serve the client. What I meant about salesmen is to educate our clients as to what's available, what can solve their problem. It's not necessarily going in and trying to sell them something they don't need. It's if their sump pump breaks, actually letting them know about battery powered or water powered backup sump pumps, so the next time it breaks, they don't have to worry about it. Or the next time the power goes out, they don't have to worry about their basement flooding. It's about educating our clients that just because we installed a back water valve a year ago doesn't mean we can't or shouldn't go and verify it. Clients need to know that we need to verify it every year by code. It needs to be accessible. So that's where our education comes in. And that's where teaching our plumbers how to present different aspects, different add-ons, automatic water shutoff, like Mow and Flow, like NOAA valve, like all of these other technologies that are out there. You're not trying to sell something for the sake of increasing revenue. You need to let them know about it because it's better serving the client. Ultimately, a homeowner is going to feel that. If you're trying to sell them on something, they're going to feel that. But if you're educating them on the quality of the water in their area, and maybe they should think about installing a filtration system, well, now you're educating them. And that's a different place to come from.
Sure. I agree with you on that. Thinking back to 20 years ago, you had a certain set of challenges. Those are probably different now. What is your biggest challenge now versus then?
Internet is definitely one of them. It used to be when I took a marketing class, they used to say that a client who's unhappy is 10 times more likely to share that fact than a client that's very satisfied. Okay, 10 times more likely, and they'll share it to 10 times as many people, which now that's multiplied by thousands. Yeah. I mean, one review goes to thousands. One plumber's having a bad day on the road and gets cut off, and everybody hears about it. That's one of the challenging parts. It's also one of the beautiful parts is that we're able to reach more people in a different way. But from a challenge point of view, it's customers have higher expectations now at lower pricing because they feel that they could shop around and they could look up the price of a backwater valve at a supplier in South Carolina, which has no bearing on what it cost us.
Right.
And then even explaining our business model with time and material as to how we keep the lights on and how the phones keep ringing and the expenses behind that. It's people are looking more at what my costs are and what my percentage markup I'm allowed to take, which is where a lot of the flat rate pricing actually helps with that. But there doesn't seem to be a market for that here. So that's really my challenge, is clients' expectations and how they're able to voice their displeasure.
Thinking out long term, and this is going to be a little bit different question for you than it is for some other people I've interviewed because you're already a fourth generation. But what are you building this business for? Are you building it for succession generation 5? Are you building it for acquisition, or is that kind of an unknown right now?
I am building for stability, first and foremost. My son's 11 years old. He's worked here 2 summers in a row in the warehouse. Last year, I got him an electric scooter after being here. He says he wants to, but he's starting high school tomorrow. So really, who knows what the future is going to bring? Right now, my goal in building is to build a viable, stable company that has natural growth, that is a beacon of light in the service industry, not just in plumbing. I want to set the standard to what service really means. I want to change the mindset of trades. I want to take trade school. I want to be able to bring trade school up in esteem and not have it being taboo. Oh, you couldn't make it in university, I guess you could go into a trade. Oh, you're in trade. Oh, you're a plumber. It's because you couldn't do university, as opposed to it being the right path for a lot of people. I look at Europeans and they hold trades in such high esteem. They're on par with professionals, with engineers and lawyers and doctors, because as we saw throughout the pandemic, we need tradesmen. We need people keeping the toilets flushing. I mean, plumbers protect the health of the nation. That's not just a slogan that American Standard put out to sell more toilets. It's about instilling a pride in tradesmanship and our work. So that's really where I want to go and bring our company. I want to set the standard to what service should and could be.
To learn more about Ben and Levine Brothers, please visit levinebros.ca. That's LEVINEBROS.ca. Also, please remember to like and subscribe to keep more of this great content coming.